In this lesson, we'll create some quick area rugs to go into our room. So it looks like we need a few rugs in here, I think. So let's put one right kind of under the coffee table, kind of offset a little bit. And so these are going to start out pretty simple, and then we can make them actually look pretty good just using our paint deformation. So I'm going to go to the top view here, and I want to create a box. And so I'm just going to drag this out and just create maybe something like that, and give it just a little bit of height. And then we'll go into our perspective here. Now obviously these are going to be very thin, so one of the first things that I'll do is go ahead and dial that height down to something very small. Okay, I've got about 8/32 or so. And now let's add several divisions to this. So we know we're going to be wanting to add a lot of resolution in here. So along the length, let's go ahead and add several divisions in here rather than adding a smooth to this. Okay, so maybe 18 by, I don't know, 18 or so. Something like that. All right, and then we can add a segment along the height. Okay, so that when we now go in and convert this to an editable poly and smooth this, okay, it's actually looks fairly good. So the one thing that I do want to do is just add some resolution right along the edges so that it's kind of nice and sharp. So again, to do that, select the ring and go ahead and add some resolution right in there. Okay, do the same thing over on this side. And let's actually do this side simultaneously here. And you can see how that's not going to work in this case because it's actually pushing that to the other way. So I'm going to actually just do one at a time here. So in this case, we would do the opposite number to go ahead and get an edge right along that other side there. Okay, let's do the same thing down here. Select that ring, and then go ahead and pull that across. Okay, so now what we want to do is, if we look at this, it's just very flat. Okay, what we want to do is make this look like a rug. Okay? So it's going to have a little bit of deformation in this. So we can kind of break this up using our paint deformation. So we'll go ahead and do a push-pull, and our value I'm going to dial down to something pretty small. And let's go ahead and keep the brush size where it is, and my strength I'm going to dial down as well. So maybe something like 1/3 or so. And then we'll just come in here and just rough this up a little bit. Okay, and feel free to definitely, paint along the edges as well, not just at the top. You want to kind of roughen those edges up a little bit too. Okay, so the edges aren't completely straight. And just kind of roughen that up a little bit. Then we can dial our brush size down a little bit, maybe down to 8, and then come in and create some more detail in here. And then if you turn that off, you can kind of see that in there. And if it's not quite standing out enough, you can come in and add a little bit more. But you don't want it to be too much. You want it to be kind of subtle. All right. So, and once you have that rug the way that you like it, we can just duplicate it to over here and just kind of rotate this around, and we can add this as kind of an entryway rug as well. So maybe something like that. All right. Now let's go ahead and do the same thing, and we'll kind of create a couple of round rugs. And to do this, we'll simply use a cylinder instead of a plane, instead of a box. So go ahead and drag a cylinder out, something like that. Go ahead and drag the height out. And again, I'm going to bump up the number of sides. So I'm going to bump up the resolution on this. So maybe 36. Give it some height segments. Cap segments. Okay, so we've got some geometry to work with. Okay, let's go ahead and take the height down quite a bit. So we'll go ahead and dial that down to something a little bit more realistic. Go ahead and take that down. something like that. And now we can do the same thing here by converting this to a poly, editable poly, and then go down into our push-pull, and let's again modify this about 1/2 inch, take our brush strength down, and then we can come in and sculpt on here. Okay, brush size is, or brush strength is not quite enough. You can come in, and I'll stay away from the middle part because I don't want to really redraw that, and you can tend to get a little bit of weirdness in there if you kind of sculpt in there. So just kind of rough things up a little bit, kind of rough up the edges so it's a bit ruffled. You could also take your FFD box and come in and modify this as well if you wanted to do that. Okay, and now you can even come in and smooth that, and that'll just knock off those kind of those corners. And then I'll take this, kind of get that in the right position, and then I'll shift and pull that over and create kind of another smaller version of that. It's kind of under these chairs, kind of. So just something like that to define this sort of sitting area. And you can see, and you can go in and modify those sculpts so you don't get something that looks exactly the same. All right, and I can take this rug here, and maybe I want to make this a bit bigger. Go ahead and scale this up. Make this a bit larger. Okay, just to kind of finish things up here. And I think looking at this table, I'm going to go ahead and maybe scale this down a little bit. Kind of move it up here to the corner of this rug. And make sure I move it down to sit on top of that rug. All right. So we've got a lot of pieces in here that are really very colorful, and that's just kind of Max's way of adding color to these objects when we create it. I've gone ahead and just left that. But normally what I like to do is model in just kind of a modeling material, which so everything would be gray. But so just keep that in mind. That's something that you can do if you want to. But feel free to you can change the colors of all of these objects. You can see right up here by just changing these colors. Okay, so you can go in, and for all of your different pieces, if you want to if you've combined different pieces, you can create those and then make sure that you add the same color to those if you want to use those colors. Otherwise, you can just go into your material editor and add a new material to everything to actually do that. You can also set it up to where it will actually add that material on your new objects, and you can also change the wireframe to be the color of whatever your material is, because right now the wireframe is basically the color of whatever it is, whatever color you've selected. Okay, so let's go ahead and now turn on our ceiling. So go to layers, you drag this up so you can see this, go to the ceiling layer. Okay, and we can go ahead and turn that on, and now if we come down inside here, we can kind of take a little bit of a look around. I'll turn off the edged faces, and so let's take a look around at what we've done. So we've got kind of the big structural element there in the front, the shelf, we've got a component, we've got kind of a big couch and the coffee table, and we've got the plants. It's kind of a little piece of art. Got these plants over here. We were able to add these parametric steps in here very, very easily. Some pictures, track lights, this kind of a shelf slash sculptural piece on the wall. And you can see all these empty shells. We can use a lot of these techniques that we've used here to create any amount of little pieces that you can put on here, any kind of sculptural pieces that you can think of. So I'll leave that to you guys. We've also created this fireplace, a couple of chairs, the windows and window coverings, the door, and so we really got kind of an interesting interior completed here. And so you can use a lot of these techniques in your own work as well. So there you go with our final interior.